What's up guys, my name is Ace, and Season 4 Reloaded for Modern Warfare 3 is here, and with this we saw a little bit of weapon balancing, some bug fixes, and a couple changes, not to mention all of the content, but in today's video we're just going to be focusing on the changes, both weapon balancing and otherwise. And of course, just like all of my Modern Warfare 3 videos, I'm only talking about multiplayer here, I don't cover Warzone or zombies. But starting it off, the first thing to point out is they actually added Grand Mastery calling cards and emblems to the game. So if you're somebody that's grinded through those, now you have a new way to show that off. Another thing with calling cards that's quite interesting and has taken quite a long time to get this in the game, but I'm glad to see it, is victim calling cards will now be displayed, which means when you kill an enemy player, pre-patch, all you would see is their name and the streak you were on. Now you'll also see their calling card on the bottom center of the screen. And I know that might seem minor, and honestly it is, because I do feel calling cards have largely lost all of their value over the years, since most of them can just be purchased or you end up unlocking them through the battle pass, whereas in the past, calling cards really showed off like a challenge that you completed. But in either case, at least it is being displayed there now, instead of just when the enemy player kills you. After that, there's a pretty long list of game mode specific bugs. Most of these were like heads up display bugs, none of them were really gameplay related bugs. It was just how things were displaying, so I'm not going to read every single one of them out since they don't really impact the gameplay. On top of that, for maps, there were several little adjustments. So on Rundown, they improved the inconsistent bullet penetration on low wall surfaces. They weren't really specific enough to mention which low wall surfaces, but there are some adjustments made there. With Scrapyard, they added a mantle prompt for the shipping container near the landing zone, and they fixed an exploit allowing players to interact with demolition objectives from an unintended location. So you could actually plant or defuse a bomb through a wall, if I remember correctly. Then for Terminal, they did the same thing. There was a demolition objective you could interact with from an unintended location. And then with Tokyo, they removed collision causing low-flying aerial kill streaks to be destroyed. So your aerial kill streaks would actually just run into something on the map and blow up. That shouldn't be happening anymore. They also improved the private match bot player pathing near vehicles. And then finally, they fixed multiple areas where enemy nameplates could be seen through walls. And with that, we can now get into the weapon balancing. And there wasn't a ton of weapon balancing that took place here, but some key changes. The first thing they did here is with the base FJX Horus, without the aftermarket part, they reduced all of our damage ranges by 10%. Now it is worth mentioning, this is still better than the FJX Horus was when it was first added to the game. So they added this gun, then they ended up buffing it. Now they've nerfed it back to sort of a middle ground between where it was at launch and where it was before the Season 4 Reloaded update. So still a solid gun. I wouldn't say this totally destroys the base FJX Horus. But on top of this, there was another adjustment here, and that was to the new JAK Scimitar kit for this, the aftermarket part. What they did here is they increased our damage range benefit from 35% up to 65%. Now, when combined with that reduction to our range on the base FJX Horus, this kind of balances out to the point where this is only a small net buff to the JAK Scimitar kit. But overall, yes, the JAK Scimitar kit is going to be very slightly better now than it was before the Season 4 Reloaded update. And as a result, this is definitely still my favorite way to run the FJX Horus. Next, we have a recurring patch note that is once again showing up. This is to the KV Broadside's JAK Jawbreaker conversion kit. With this, they say they fixed an issue causing the muzzle attachment to unequip in gameplay. So in the past with this kit, if you put a muzzle on there, it would show up just fine in the firing range, but the moment you booted up a game, that muzzle would disappear. You would get no benefits from that, and you're just wasting an attachment slot. And they've stated that they've fixed this like 3 or 4 times now in patch notes, and it just never seems to stick. However, I'm happy to report they've finally done it. Muzzles now work in-game on the JAK Jawbreaker kit. And that's great news. It sounds like this one was a pretty tricky bug and they finally got that resolved. Next, something I know a ton of people are going to be very happy to see, the KAR98K got nerfed. And what they've done here is they just gave it sniper level aim assist. And this is exactly the issue that we ran into with the longbow, where you had all the benefits of a sniper rifle, like the ability to one-shot kill, but it had insane handling stats, and it had regular aim assist, like the same level of aim assist that a marksman rifle would have, which means you would get aim assist when in hipfire, and you would also get very noticeably stronger aim assist when aiming down sight with it. So they nerfed the KAR98K in the exact same way. It's going to have the exact same amount of power, so the same one-shot kill potential, same ranges, same velocity, all that stuff. It's just going to be harder to use on controller now since you'll have no hipfire aim assist and very noticeably weaker aim down sight aim assist. Next, we saw some adjustments to the JAK Wardens conversion kit for the Lockwood Mark II, that's those akimbo shotguns. And with this, they actually nerfed a couple of our damage ranges. So our maximum damage range, where we get that very consistent one-shot kill with even just one of the shotguns, you don't have to fire both at this point. Previously, it was 4.6 meters. Now it's just 3 meters. Additionally, for our second damage range, this is where we get a fairly consistent 2-shot, so if you pull both triggers at the same time, you're almost always going to get effectively a 1-shot kill since you're firing both at the same time. This went from 8.9 meters down to 7.1 meters. So overall, this should reduce the consistency of this gun and make sure that you have to get right up close and personal to gain that consistency. And then on top of this, something I'm pretty happy to see is they've actually nerfed our sprint out time from 35 milliseconds up to 100 milliseconds. And the reason I'm happy to see this is 35 milliseconds is nearly instant. That meant there was basically zero punishment for getting caught mid-sprint when using these, and you could just come out of sprint instantly and delete somebody. And when you combine that with the fact that this is a 1-shot kill weapon, it was often frustrating to run into somebody that was mid-sprint and there's still nothing you can do about it. You're just gonna get insta-deleted by them. Now, at 100 milliseconds, that's still a very fast sprint out time in this game, so it's not going to be nearly as punishing as like assault rifles, for instance, but it's just going to be a bit more reasonable now. And honestly, that's the change I really wanted to see. I don't even think the range reductions were necessary on this. I'm totally fine with these range reductions. I just think the primary issue after the most recent nerfs to this a little while back, the primary issue was still the sprint out time, so I'm glad they took care of that at least. But then finally, for weapon balancing changes, we actually saw some buffs to the Carrack 300, which is a bit surprising since nobody really seems to care about this gun. And honestly, I don't think they're going to care about this gun even after these buffs. But let's have a look at it anyway. So what they did here is they effectively introduced a new maximum damage range from 0 to 12.7 meters, so a very tiny range. And in this range, we are capable of getting a 1-shot kill to the upper torso, neck, or head, whereas previously, you could only get a 1-shot kill to the neck or head with this gun up close. And then on top of this, they adjusted some of our body multipliers. Essentially, with this gun, it's now always going to maintain a 1-shot kill potential to the head or the neck at any range, whereas previously that would only stretch out to about 58 meters. And then on top of this, once we get beyond 58 meters, they just made it more consistent, so it's always going to be at least a 2-shot kill anywhere to the torso or upper arms. It will still be a 3-shot kill to the legs or lower arms though, but that's at least a lot better than it used to be, because beyond 70 meters in the past, it was a 3-shot kill to the body or a 2-shot kill to the head, which is ridiculous for a sniper rifle. Now, like I said, I don't think this is going to be enough to suddenly make the Carrack a very viable option that a lot of people will start using, but I mean, at least it's not nearly as horrible as it used to be. And that's it for all the weapon balancing that took place. Next, we've got some killstreak adjustments. The first thing to point out is with both mosquito drones and the swarm, they will no longer deal damage to the killstreak owner. And that's a pretty huge buff, especially to the swarm. The mosquito drone, that's going to reduce some random occurrences where it would kill you. But when it comes to the swarm, this was a pretty frequent thing in my experience, is the swarm would often get me killed if I get a little too close to enemies. So that will no longer be taking place, although I should mention if it blows like a vehicle or something up next to you, that vehicle explosion could still potentially kill you. After that, the mortar strike got buffed massively, and right now in the background, I'm going to show you what it looks like pre-patch. Pay really close attention to how long it takes for these to come in and how long it lasts. Because what they've done here is they, first off, removed a 2-second delay before that first mortar will come in after you mark your target, which is pretty big, so there's going to be a lot less time now for the enemies to get out of the way when you first call that in. On top of this, they decreased the mortar travel time from 4 seconds to 3 seconds, so it's going to hit the ground faster as well once it starts coming in. They decreased the delay between mortars from 500 to 750 milliseconds down to 250 to 500 milliseconds. So those gaps between the mortars coming in, that's going to be reduced. They also increased the number of mortars per wave from 4 to 6, so there's going to be more total damage dealt per wave of mortars. And then finally, they decreased the time between those waves from roughly 3 to 4 seconds down to 2.25 to 2.75 seconds. Now, it is worth mentioning with this, all of these changes balance out to the point where the mortar strike will still last on the map for roughly the same amount of time, at around 16.5 seconds or so. Technically, it will last slightly shorter now after this update, just due to all the changes they made there. But overall, at least on paper and based on my little bit of testing in game, the mortar strike should be significantly more powerful now than it was pre-patch. After that though, for kill streaks, with the missile drone, they just mentioned they improved the flight paths on several maps to prevent obstructed view on the playspace. And then with the DNA bomb, players within vehicles are no longer immune to death. And that wraps it up for all of the changes that were made to public matches with this update. However, I just wanted to quickly point out, in ranked play, they've unrestricted the MTZ-556 as well as the Holger 556, so those are now available to use in ranked play. And with that, that is going to wrap it up for today's video on all of the important changes that took place with the Season 4 Reloaded updates. Like I said, we will be covering all of the content additions, like the new shotgun, for instance, as well as the new aftermarket parts. But with that, this is where I'm curious to hear from you guys in those comments down below. How are you feeling about the changes that took place with this update? Like the addition of that calling card when you kill enemy players, the weapon adjustments, the kill streak adjustments. Just let me know all of those thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.